The scorching August sun beat down mercilessly on the dusty parking lot of Joshua Tree National Park as the Martinez family stepped out of their silver Honda Pilot. It was August 15th, 2009, and what should have been a perfect family camping trip was about to become one of California's most haunting unsolved mysteries. "Dad, it's so hot," complained 8-year-old Sophia, her dark curls already sticking to her forehead despite the early morning hour. Her younger brother, Miguel, only 5, clutched his favorite stuffed dinosaur while squinting at the alien landscape of twisted Joshua trees stretching endlessly toward the horizon. Carlos Martinez, a 34-year-old construction foreman from Riverside, lifted their camping gear from the trunk with practiced efficiency. His wife Eleanor, 32, a kindergarten teacher with gentle eyes and an infectious smile, was busy organizing their supplies and checking items off her meticulously prepared list. This trip had been planned for months, a chance for the family to disconnect from the world and reconnect with each other. "Remember, kids," Elena said, kneeling down to their level, "we stay together at all times. This desert is beautiful, but it can be dangerous if we're not careful." The family had chosen Skull Rock as their camping destination, a popular spot known for its distinctive rock formation that resembled a human skull. Carlos had been here once before as a teenager and remembered the sense of wonder he'd felt exploring the otherworldly landscape. He wanted to share that magic with his children. As they hiked toward their campsite, the temperature was already climbing past 95 degrees Fahrenheit. The forecast predicted it would reach 110 by afternoon, typical for Joshua Tree in August, but still brutal for anyone unprepared. Carlos carried most of the heavy gear, while Elena helped the children navigate the rocky terrain. "Look, Mommy!" Miguel pointed excitedly at a roadrunner darting between the Joshua trees. "It's just like in the cartoons," Elena laughed, pulling out her digital camera to capture the moment. She was always documenting their family adventures, creating albums that would preserve these precious memories forever. She snapped photos of the children exploring, of Carlos setting up their tent, of the stunning desert landscape that seemed to stretch into infinity. Their campsite was perfect, nestled between several large boulders that would provide some shade during the hottest part of the day. Carlos worked efficiently to set up their tent, while Elena prepared lunch. The children explored the immediate area, always within sight, collecting interesting rocks and marveling at the strange desert plants. "This place is like another planet," Sophia observed, running her hand along the rough bark of a Joshua tree. Her artistic eye was already composing the drawings she would make when they returned home. As the afternoon wore on, the heat became increasingly oppressive. The family retreated to the shade of their tent, playing card games and reading books. Carlos checked their water supply. They had brought plenty, enough for 3 days according to his calculations. Elena made sure the children were drinking regularly and applied sunscreen liberally. "Tomorrow we'll hike to Skull Rock early in the morning," Carlos promised, "before it gets too hot." That evening, as the desert temperature finally began to drop, they built a small campfire and roasted marshmallows. The children's laughter echoed off the surrounding rocks as they told ghost stories and gazed up at the brilliant canopy of stars, unpolluted by city lights. Elena took one last photo that night. The 4 of them gathered around the campfire, faces glowing in the warm light, smiles genuine and carefree. It would be the last photograph of the Martinez family together. "I love you all so much," Elena whispered as she tucked the children into their sleeping bags. "This has been the perfect day." Carlos banked the fire and checked their campsite one final time. Everything was secure, their food properly stored, their water supply adequate. The desert night was peaceful, filled only with the distant call of coyotes and the whisper of wind through the Joshua trees. None of them could have imagined that by morning their lives would take a turn that would baffle investigators, haunt search and rescue teams, and leave a community desperate for answers that would remain elusive for 14 long years. As the family settled into sleep under the vast desert sky, the last normal moments of their lives ticked away, each second bringing them closer to a mystery that would consume countless hours of investigation and leave more questions than answers in its wake. Into the void, dawn broke over Joshua Tree National Park on August 16, 2009, painting the desert landscape in shades of gold and amber. The temperature was already climbing toward what would become another scorching day, but something was wrong at the Martinez family campsite. Park Ranger David Chen made the discovery during his routine morning patrol at 7:30 a.m. The family's tent stood exactly where it should be, their Honda Pilot parked in the designated area, but an eerie silence hung over the camp that immediately set his nerves on edge. "Hello?" Chen called out, approaching the tent cautiously. "Martinez family, everything okay?" No response. The tent flap was partially open, moving gently in the morning breeze. Chen peered inside and felt his stomach drop. The sleeping bags were empty, but they appeared to have been slept in. Personal belongings were scattered around. Elena's camera, Carlos's wallet, the children's toys, but the family was nowhere to be seen. Chen immediately radioed for backup and began a preliminary search of the immediate area. What he found only deepened the mystery. There were no signs of struggle, no indication of forced departure. The campfire had burned down to cold ashes, suggesting it hadn't been tended since the previous evening. Most puzzling of all, there were no clear footprints leading away from the campsite despite the sandy soil that should have preserved tracks. Within 2 hours, Joshua Tree National Park was swarming with search and rescue personnel. San Bernardino County Sheriff's deputies, park rangers and volunteer search teams spread out across the desert in an expanding grid pattern. The initial assumption was that the family had gone for an early morning hike and become disoriented or injured. Detective Sarah Morrison, a 15-year veteran of the Sheriff's Department, took charge of the investigation. She was known for her methodical approach and had solved several missing persons cases in the harsh desert environment. But as she examined the campsite, she found herself facing something unlike anything in her experience. "The car keys are still here," she noted, photographing the interior of the tent. Wallets, identification, Elena's purse, everything you'd expect them to take if they were going anywhere voluntarily. The search expanded rapidly. Helicopters equipped with thermal imaging cameras swept the area, their rotors echoing off the rock formations. Ground teams with tracking dogs combed every trail, every wash, every possible route the family might have taken. The dogs picked up scent trails, but they led in multiple directions and seemed to vanish inexplicably after short distances. By the second day, the search had grown to include over 200 personnel. The story had captured media attention, and news crews gathered at the park entrance, broadcasting updates to a captivated public. The Martinez family's extended relatives arrived from Riverside, setting up a vigil and pleading for information. Elena's sister, Carmen, spoke to reporters with tears streaming down her face. Elena would never leave her children. Never. "She's the most protective mother I know. Something terrible has happened to them." The investigation revealed troubling details. Security cameras at the park entrance showed the Martinez family arriving on August 15th, but there was no record of them leaving. Their cell phones were found in the tent, all turned off. Elena's camera contained dozens of photos from their first day, including that final image around the campfire, but nothing from the morning of their disappearance. Detective Morrison interviewed other campers who had been in the area. A couple camping a quarter-mile away reported hearing children's laughter around the campfire the previous evening, but nothing unusual during the night. Another camper mentioned seeing a figure walking near the Martinez campsite around 3 a.m., but couldn't provide any useful details in the darkness. "The thing that bothers me most," Morrison confided to her partner, Detective James Rodriguez, "is the complete absence of evidence. 4 people don't just vanish without leaving some trace. There should be footprints, disturbed vegetation, something." The search continued for 2 weeks, covering over 1,000 square miles of desert terrain. Every cave was explored, every wash searched, every possible hiding place investigated. Dive teams checked water sources, though the area had very few. The effort was unprecedented in the park's history, but it yielded nothing. Theories began to emerge. Some suggested the family had been victims of foul play, perhaps targeted by someone who knew their camping plans. Others proposed they had become lost and succumbed to the desert heat, their bodies hidden in some remote location yet to be discovered. A few even suggested they had voluntarily disappeared, though this theory was quickly dismissed by those who knew the family. Carlos's employer confirmed he had no financial troubles and was well regarded at work. Elena's school principal described her as dedicated and responsible. Neither had any history of mental health issues or substance abuse. Their marriage was stable, their children happy and healthy. There was simply no logical explanation for their disappearance. As the weeks turned to months, the active search was scaled back, though the case remained open. The Martinez family's campsite became a shrine of sorts with flowers and messages left by visitors who had been touched by their story. The mystery had become part of Joshua Tree's folklore, whispered about around campfires and discussed in online forums dedicated to unsolved cases. Detective Morrison never stopped thinking about the case. Even as other investigations demanded her attention, she would return to the files, studying the photographs, reviewing witness statements, hoping to find some detail that had been overlooked. The complete absence of evidence haunted her professional instincts and challenged everything she thought she knew about missing persons investigations. The Martinez family had simply vanished into the vast desert, leaving behind only questions and a growing sense that something far more complex than a simple hiking accident had occurred in the shadow of those ancient Joshua trees. The discovery. 14 years had passed since the Martinez family vanished into the Joshua Tree desert, but the case had never truly left the public consciousness. It had become one of California's most famous unsolved mysteries, the subject of documentaries, podcasts, and countless online discussions. For Detective Sarah Morrison, now nearing retirement, it remained the one case that had defined her career, and the one that had never been solved. On March 22, 2023, experienced hiker and photographer Jake Sullivan was exploring a remote section of Joshua Tree National Park, several miles from the original Martinez campsite. Sullivan, a 42-year-old nature photographer from Los Angeles, had been visiting the park for over a decade, always seeking new angles and hidden locations for his landscape photography. The area he was exploring that day was rarely visited by casual tourists. It required a challenging hike over rough terrain, through narrow washes and around massive boulder formations. Sullivan was drawn by reports of a hidden slot canyon that might provide unique photographic opportunities. As he navigated through a particularly narrow passage between two towering rock formations, something caught his eye. Wedged beneath a large boulder, partially buried by years of wind-blown sand and debris, was what appeared to be fabric. At first, Sullivan thought it might be trash left by an inconsiderate visitor, but as he looked closer, his heart began to race. It was a child's blanket, small, with a faded pattern of cartoon dinosaurs. The fabric was weathered and sun-bleached, but still recognizable. More importantly, something was wrapped inside it. Sullivan's hands trembled as he carefully extracted the bundle from its hiding place. The blanket was wrapped around what appeared to be a small notebook or journal, protected from the elements by multiple layers of plastic bags. Despite 14 years in the desert, the contents had been remarkably preserved. Recognizing the potential significance of his discovery, Sullivan immediately called 911. Within hours, the remote location was once again swarming with law enforcement personnel. Detective Morrison, despite being just weeks from retirement, insisted on being present when the bundle was opened. The notebook belonged to Elena Martinez. Her name was written on the inside cover in her distinctive handwriting, and the pages contained what appeared to be a detailed account of the family's final days. Morrison's hands shook as she read the first entry, dated August 16, 2009, the day the family had disappeared. "If someone finds this," Elena had written, "please know that we didn't leave willingly. We're being held by someone who knows the desert better than we ever could. He says he's been watching families camp here for years, waiting for the right one. We're scared, but we're together and we're trying to stay strong for the children." The entries continued over several days, revealing a horrifying ordeal. Elena wrote about being forced to move from location to location through hidden passages and caves that their captor seemed to know intimately. She described a man who appeared to be in his 50s, weathered by years in the desert, who claimed to have been living off the grid in Joshua Tree for decades. "He keeps talking about how the desert chooses its own," one entry read. "He says we're meant to stay here forever, to become part of the landscape like he has. Carlos tried to fight him the first day, but he has weapons and knows every inch of this place. We have to be smart, wait for our chance." The most heartbreaking entries described Elena's attempts to keep Sofia and Miguel calm and hopeful. She wrote about telling them stories, playing quiet games, and promising they would see their home again. She documented their captor's increasingly erratic behavior and her growing fear that he was planning something terrible. The final entry was dated August 20, 2009. "He says tomorrow we move to the final place. I don't know what that means, but I'm scared. I'm hiding this journal here, wrapped in Miguel's blanket. If we don't make it, at least people will know what happened to us. Tell our families we love them. Tell them we fought. Detective Morrison felt a mixture of vindication and heartbreak as she read Elena's words. After 14 years of speculation and theories, they finally had answers, but they also had confirmation of their worst fears. The discovery triggered the largest search operation in Joshua Tree's history. Using Elena's descriptions of landmarks and cave systems, search teams focused on areas that had been overlooked in the original investigation. Ground-penetrating radar was brought in, along with specialized cave rescue teams and forensic anthropologists. The search revealed a network of natural caves and hidden passages that even experienced park rangers hadn't known existed. In one particularly remote cave system, investigators found evidence of long-term habitation, makeshift furniture, stored supplies, and personal items that suggested someone had indeed been living in the desert for years. But of the Martinez family or their captor, there was no trace. The cave system was extensive, with multiple passages leading deeper into the earth. Some passages had collapsed over the years, potentially sealing off sections that might contain the answers investigators desperately sought. Dr. Rebecca Chen, a forensic anthropologist brought in to assist with the search, explained the challenges they faced. The desert is both preserving and destructive. Dry conditions can preserve remains for decades, but flash floods, rock slides, and animal activity can also scatter or bury evidence beyond recovery. As news of the discovery spread, it reignited public interest in the case. The Martinez family's relatives, who had never stopped hoping for answers, found themselves experiencing a complex mixture of relief and renewed grief. They finally knew their loved ones hadn't simply gotten lost or abandoned them, but they also had to confront the reality of what the family had endured. Carmen Martinez, Elena's sister, spoke to reporters outside the park. At least now we know Elena was thinking of us at the end. She was still being a mother, still trying to protect her children and leave us a message. That's who she was, always thinking of others, even in her darkest moment. The investigation was far from over, but Elena's journal had transformed the case from a mysterious disappearance into a confirmed crime. Somewhere in the vast expanse of Joshua Tree National Park, the truth about what happened to the Martinez family was waiting to be discovered. Chapter 4. The Truth Revealed. The breakthrough came 3 weeks after Elena's journal was discovered. A team of specialized cave rescue experts, working with ground-penetrating radar, located a previously unknown cave system, approximately 2 miles from where the journal had been found. The entrance had been concealed by a rock slide that appeared to have occurred years earlier, possibly triggered by the flash floods that occasionally swept through the desert washes. Detective Morrison, despite officially retiring the week before, had been granted special permission to participate in the investigation's final phase. As the rescue team carefully cleared the entrance, she felt a mixture of anticipation and dread that had become familiar over her decades in law enforcement. 14 years, she whispered to her former partner, Detective Rodriguez, who had also returned for this final phase. 14 years of wondering, and it might all end today. The cave system was more extensive than anyone had imagined. The main chamber opened into a network of passages that had been clearly modified by human hands. Someone had spent years, possibly decades, creating a hidden refuge deep beneath the desert floor. Battery-powered LED lights revealed makeshift furniture, stored supplies, and walls covered with photographs. Surveillance photos of families camping in Joshua Tree, taken over many years. Dr. Rebecca Chen, the forensic anthropologist, examined the photographs with growing horror. These images span at least 2 decades, she reported to the team. He was watching families long before the Martinez case. This was systematic obsessive behavior. The photographs showed dozens of families, parents with children, couples on romantic getaways, groups of friends enjoying the desert wilderness. Each photo was meticulously labeled with dates, campsite locations, and disturbing personal observations written in cramped handwriting. The Martinez family appeared in the final series of photos, taken during their first day at the park. As the team ventured deeper into the cave system, they discovered evidence of a man who had completely severed ties with civilization. Stolen camping equipment was organized with military precision. Canned goods, some dating back years, were stacked in careful rows. A makeshift workshop contained tools for maintaining the cave system and expanding its passages. Most disturbing were the personal journals found throughout the caves. The man who had lived here had documented his gradual descent into madness, his growing obsession with the families who visited his desert, and his elaborate fantasies about creating a perfect family who would choose to stay with him forever. In the deepest chamber, accessible only through a narrow passage that required crawling for nearly 50 feet, the team made the discovery that would finally close the case. The remains of 4 individuals were found in what appeared to have been a carefully prepared burial site. Despite the passage of time, enough evidence remained for positive identification. The Martinez family had been found, but they weren't alone. The remains of their captor were there as well, along with evidence that suggested he had died shortly after the family. A handwritten confession, found sealed in a metal container, revealed the final chapter of the tragedy. The man identified himself as Robert Bobby Hutchins, a former military survival instructor who had disappeared into the Joshua Tree Desert in 1995 after suffering a mental breakdown following his discharge from the army. Military records confirmed his identity. He had been reported missing by his sister in Nevada, but the search had been limited and unsuccessful. Hutchins's confession, written in the same cramped handwriting found throughout the caves, revealed a deeply disturbed individual who had become obsessed with the idea that certain families were chosen by the desert to stay forever. For 14 years, he had lived in the cave system he had gradually expanded, surviving off supplies he stole from campers and occasional trips to nearby towns under cover of darkness. "The desert speaks to those who listen," he had written. "It told me that families come here seeking something they've lost in the outside world. I was meant to help them find it, to show them that paradise exists beneath the surface, away from the corruption of modern life." His confession described how he had been watching and following camping families for years, learning their routines, studying their dynamics, but had never acted until he encountered the Martinez family. Something about their genuine happiness and closeness had triggered his delusions, and he had convinced himself that they were the perfect family meant to join him in his underground world. The confession described in chilling detail how he had used his military training to approach their campsite silently in the early morning hours of August 16, 2009. He had disabled their vehicle by removing a crucial engine component, ensuring they couldn't escape, even if they managed to return to their campsite. Then, he had forced the family at gunpoint to accompany him into the desert, using his intimate knowledge of hidden trails and passages to avoid detection by search teams. "They resisted at first," he wrote, "but I knew they would understand eventually. The children were curious about the caves, and I could see the wonder in their eyes. Helena was protective, like a mother should be, but I could tell she was beginning to see the beauty of what I was offering them." For 5 days, he had kept them in various cave locations, moving them whenever he heard search helicopters overhead. His plan, according to the confession, was to gradually convince them that they belonged in the desert, that they could build a new life in his hidden world. He had prepared separate chambers for the family, stocked with supplies and even children's books and toys he had collected over the years. The confession revealed the depth of his delusions. He genuinely believed he was saving the family from the corruption of the outside world, offering them a chance to live in harmony with the desert landscape he had come to worship. When Carlos had attempted to overpower him on the 3rd day, Hutchins had been genuinely confused by the resistance. "Carlos doesn't understand yet," he had written. "He thinks I'm hurting his family, but I'm giving them the greatest gift possible. Elena is starting to see it. She asked about the water sources, about how I've survived here. She's beginning to understand that this could be home." But Elena's journal told a very different story. Her hidden writings revealed a woman desperately trying to keep her family alive while looking for any opportunity to escape. She had asked about water sources not out of curiosity, but to understand their captor's vulnerabilities. She had engaged him in conversation to learn about the cave system's layout, hoping to find a way out. The confession described how Hutchins's mental state had deteriorated rapidly when it became clear that the family would never stop trying to escape. On August 20th, he had discovered that Carlos had been secretly loosening rocks near one of the cave entrances, attempting to create a passage large enough for the family to crawl through. "They don't understand." His handwriting became increasingly erratic. "They keep talking about going home, but this is home. The desert chose them, just like it chose me. I can't let them leave. They belong here now." The confession ended with Hutchins describing how he had suffered what appeared to be a heart attack on August 21, 2009. The stress of keeping the family captive, combined with his deteriorating mental state and the physical demands of moving them between cave locations, had taken a fatal toll on his health. Realizing he was dying and that the family would be trapped without his knowledge of the cave system, he had used his remaining strength to trigger a controlled collapse that sealed them all in the deepest chamber. In his twisted logic, he believed this would ensure they would be together forever in the desert they were meant to call home. "If I can't show them the way to accept their new life," he wrote in his final entry, "then we'll all become part of the desert together. The children will never have to face the corruption of the outside world. Elena and Carlos will never have to worry about providing for them again. We'll be a family in the truest sense, united with the eternal landscape that called us here." Dr. Chen's forensic analysis confirmed the timeline described in the confession. The evidence suggested that the Martinez family had survived for several days after Hutchins's death, but had been unable to find their way out of the sealed chamber. The controlled collapse had been expertly executed. Hutchins's military engineering training had enabled him to seal the chamber while leaving enough air circulation to sustain life temporarily. Elena's final journal entry, found with her remains, was dated August 24, 2009. Her handwriting remained steady despite their desperate circumstances, a testament to her strength, even in the face of death. "We are running out of water," she had written. "Carlos found what he thinks might be another passage, but it's too narrow for us to get through. He's been working for hours, trying to widen it with his bare hands. His fingers are bleeding, but he won't stop. That's my Carlos, never giving up, always fighting for his family. The children are being so brave. Sophia has been helping me ration our remaining food, and Miguel still asks when we're going home. I've told them we're on an adventure. That help is coming. Sophia is old enough to understand more than she's letting on, but she's helping me keep Miguel calm. I can hear Carlos crying when he thinks we're asleep. He blames himself for not protecting us. But this isn't his fault. None of us could have imagined something like this. I've told him how proud I am of him, how much I love him. If this is the end, at least we're together. I pray someone finds my other journal and knows we're here. I pray our families know how much we love them. I pray that someday Sophia and Miguel's friends will know what brave, wonderful children they were. If anyone reads this, please tell our families that we fought. Tell them we never stopped loving them. Tell them we never stopped hoping." The discovery brought closure to a case that had haunted investigators and the public for 14 years, but it also raised troubling questions about how many other families Hutchins might have watched, followed, or potentially harmed during his years in the desert. A task force was immediately formed to investigate cold cases of missing persons in the Joshua Tree area dating back to 1995. The investigation revealed that at least 3 other families had reported strange encounters in the park during the years Hutchins was active. A family from Phoenix reported in 2003 that they had felt watched during their camping trip and had found evidence that someone had been through their campsite while they were hiking. Another family from San Diego reported in 2007 that their tent had been moved slightly during the night, though nothing was missing. Most significantly, a solo hiker named David Park had disappeared in Joshua Tree in 2001. His body was never found, and the case had been attributed to the harsh desert conditions. Park's disappearance now took on new significance, and investigators began searching for any connection to Hutchins. The Martinez family was finally laid to rest in a ceremony attended by hundreds of people whose lives had been touched by their story. The service was held at St. Catherine's Catholic Church in Riverside, where Elena had taught Sunday school and the children had been baptized. Carmen Martinez, Elena's sister, delivered a eulogy that brought tears to every eye in the packed church. "Elena always said that love was the most powerful force in the universe," Carmen said, her voice steady despite her tears. "Even in their darkest hour, trapped in that terrible place, she was still loving, still protecting, still hoping. That's who my sister was, a woman whose love could not be broken even by death itself." Carlos's brother, Miguel Sr., spoke about the man who had shared his name with little Miguel Martinez. Carlos was the kind of man who would work 3 jobs to provide for his family, who would drive across the state to help a friend in need. He died as he lived, fighting for the people he loved most. The case also led to significant changes in Joshua Tree National Park's safety protocols and search procedures. New regulations required all overnight campers to check in with rangers upon arrival and departure. Additional emergency communication stations were installed throughout the park, and search protocols were updated to include examination of cave systems and underground areas that had previously been overlooked. Detective Morrison, reflecting on the case during the family's memorial service, spoke about the importance of never giving up hope. Elena Martinez's courage in documenting their ordeal, even in the face of unimaginable terror, gave her family the justice they deserved. Her words brought them home. "In my 30 years of law enforcement, I've never seen such strength, such determination to protect others, even when facing death." The investigation also led to the discovery of Hutchins' sister in Nevada, who had been searching for him for nearly 3 decades. Linda Hutchins Cooper had never stopped hoping her brother would be found alive, despite his mental health struggles following his military service. "Bobby wasn't always like this," she told investigators through tears. "He was a good man who served his country, but the war changed him. When he came back, he couldn't adjust to civilian life. He started talking about wanting to disappear, to find a place where he could be alone with nature. I should have done more to get him help." The military records revealed that Hutchins had suffered from severe PTSD following his deployment in the Gulf War. He had been recommended for psychiatric treatment, but had refused, eventually going AWOL before his discharge. His sister's account painted a picture of a man who had been failed by the system, meant to help veterans transition back to civilian life. Dr. Patricia Williams, a psychiatrist specializing in PTSD and veteran mental health, reviewed Hutchins's case files and journals. "This is a tragic example of what can happen when severe mental illness goes untreated," she explained. "His isolation in the desert, combined with his untreated trauma, created a perfect storm for the development of delusional thinking. It doesn't excuse his actions, but it helps us understand how a person can become so disconnected from reality." The cave system where the family was found has been permanently sealed, marked with a memorial plaque that reads, "In memory of the Martinez family, Carlos, Elena, Sofia, and Miguel. Their love for each other transcended even the darkest circumstances. May they rest in peace." The plaque was dedicated on the first anniversary of their discovery, with family members, investigators, and park officials in attendance. Eleanor's camera, found in the cave system, contained one final photo that hadn't been on the memory card found at their original campsite. It was a picture of the family taken by Hutchins during their captivity. They were sitting together in one of the cave chambers, arms around each other, their faces showing fear but also defiance. Even in captivity, they had remained a family. The case of the Martinez family serves as a reminder of both the beauty and the danger that exists in America's wilderness areas. It also stands as a testament to the power of love, courage, and hope in the face of unthinkable circumstances. Elena's journal, preserved against all odds in the harsh desert environment, ensured that their story would not be forgotten and that justice would ultimately prevail. In the months following the discovery, the Joshua Tree area saw an increase in visitors who came to pay their respects at the memorial site. The Park Service reported that many families left flowers, toys, and personal messages, creating an informal shrine that had to be regularly maintained. The story also inspired changes beyond the park itself. Elena's courage in documenting their ordeal led to the creation of the Elena Martinez Foundation, established by her sister Carmen to provide support for families of missing persons and to advocate for improved search and rescue protocols in national parks across the country. Elena's words saved her family from being forgotten, Carmen said at the foundation's launch. Now we want to make sure her courage helps other families too. No one should have to wonder forever what happened to their loved ones. The foundation has since helped fund search operations for dozens of missing persons cases and has advocated for legislation requiring better mental health support for military veterans. Elena's final act of courage, hiding that journal in Miguel's dinosaur blanket, continues to make a difference in the world, just as she would have wanted. Detective Morrison, now fully retired, keeps a copy of Elena's journal on her desk at home. "Some cases stay with you forever," she reflects. "The Martinez family taught me that even in the darkest circumstances, love and hope can survive. Elena's words will always remind me why I became a police officer in the first place, to bring families home." The mystery that had captivated the nation for 14 years was finally solved, But the legacy of the Martinez family's courage and love continues to inspire all who hear their story. In the end, Elena's determination to leave a record of their ordeal ensured that their voices would not be silenced, and that justice would ultimately prevail in the unforgiving landscape of Joshua Tree. Thank you for joining us for this incredible true story that captivated the nation for over a decade. The courage shown by the Martinez family, particularly Elena's determination to document their ordeal, reminds us of the strength of the human spirit, even in the darkest times. This case also highlights the importance of mental health support for our veterans and the need for comprehensive search and rescue protocols in our national parks. Elena's legacy lives on through the foundation established in her name, continuing to help families and improve safety for all who venture into America's wilderness. If this story moved you as much as it moved us, please give this video a thumbs up and subscribe to our channel for more compelling true stories that deserve to be told. Hit that notification bell so you never miss our latest investigations into the mysteries that have shaped our world. Share your thoughts about this case in the comments below. We read every single one and love hearing your perspectives on these incredible stories. What do you think could have been done differently to prevent this tragedy? How can we better support our veterans and improve safety in our national parks? Until next time, stay safe out there, and remember that sometimes the most important stories are the ones that take years to fully unfold. The truth has a way of surfacing, even when it seems impossible. See you in the next video.